We're all familiar with the four seasons. You have winter, spring, summer, and fall. And even as the seasons change, some things stay the same, which is why today we are talking about seasonality. And to do so, we're going to be taking a look at the A1 Edge Finder Pro. And here we have our seasonality section with our seasonality scanner, seasonality monthly tab, and seasonality weekly tab. Just in case you're unfamiliar with what seasonality is essentially the idea that you can compare data on a particular asset. So let's just say, for example, the S&P 500. Say that you wanted to see how the S&P trends in January over the last 10 years. That's basically what we're doing here in the Edge Finder. We take the 10-year average, so all of the data over the last 10 years, and we'll compile it together and average it so that we can see, historically speaking, is this month a positive or a negative month, or even on a weekly bias, like you can see here in the Edge Finder, is it a positive week or a negative week for this particular asset, historically speaking. So here in this seasonality scanner, this is this one up top. This is kind of like your broad overview page. We have all of the different assets that we're tracking in the Edge Finder here. The blue is the weekly data, and the red is the monthly data. We can get more in depth into the individual assets here, but again, this is just kind of like your broad overview section. So if we want to start right up top, we have the VIX listed here. And this week, historically speaking, over the last 10 years, 2013 through 2023, this week is historically a good week for the VIX. So is next week at 2.5%, 3%. This month, historically, pretty good month for the VIX, 6.79%. Next month, even better, 11.64%. Again, historically speaking, that's just what the last 10 years have told us about the VIX. Now, we know that there's so many different factors that can go, that can contribute to the price of a particular asset. A country's economy and news releases and, other assets that kind of work inversely from one currency, like the dollar and gold. When one does better, the other typically performs worse. So there's so many different things that can go into the price of all these different assets. But historically speaking, seasonality is a really cool thing to take a look at because, again, sometimes things just kind of work out and they kind of continue to trend the same way year after year. So it's really cool to be able to see that. We can also take a look at like gold right here. Historically, this week, pretty good week for gold, 1.05%. Next week, kind of a break-even week, just at 0.38%, so not a ton of movement. How about on the monthly side? This month, pretty good month for gold. Next month, not too bad as well. And then I see oil here as well. This month, typically, not a good month for oil, down 0.6%. Next month, typically, it rebounds up 2.3%. How about we find oil here on this weekly chart? I see it down here. This week, historically for oil, again, kind of a break-even week, just 0.27% growth. But next week, typically, historically speaking, gives a little bit of that back. So again, kind of a broad overview, but cool to take a look at because you can kind of look at weekly and monthly at the same time for whatever asset you want to take a look at. And you can also pick and choose what assets you want to include. So maybe you're not an indice trader at all. Maybe you only focus on Forex pairs. You can just remove, I can remove gold, the VIX, oil. If I just want currency pairs, I can remove all of this stuff and they'll get taken off. You don't see the gold or VIX up here towards the top anymore. So that's cool. Just, customize the Edge Finder how you'd like. Focus on what assets you want to focus on. But let's move on and let's get a little bit more in depth. Let's take a look at monthly performance. And we're starting off with the S&P here. So S&P is up first. Again, you can take a look at any of these different assets that we track in the Edge Finder. I'm going to look at two. I'm going to look at the S&P 500 and the Euro USD. But starting off here with the S&P, what do you notice immediately about the S&P? It typically just continues to trend upwards, slowly over time. Some months are better than others. Some years are better than others. If there happens to be, a big global, crisis like the pandemic, something like that can absolutely tank the stock market. We've seen it happen. But historically speaking, month after month, the S&P slowly rises. Some months quicker than others. And then we can see here, September and October, historically speaking, are bad months for the S&P 500. So why don't we just go ahead and take a look at the chart, S&P 500 chart, throughout the year of 2023. So here it is, S&P 500 daily chart. We've got 2023 right here. So here's the beginning of the year all the way through December. And then here's, the current day price up here in January 2024, but we don't need to focus on that right now. We're just looking at 2023. And again, the first thing that you notice immediately is this thing pretty much all year has continued to trend higher. We are way higher now than we were at the beginning of 2023 price-wise. So I also see our biggest dip right here. Looks like it happened in, you guessed it, September and October, which lines up perfectly with what we see here. So January, February, March, April, slow growth typically for the S&P, and you can kind of see that there. February wasn't a great month, but March, April, May, kind of stagnant, and then we see this big spike here in June and July. And what do I see here? July is one of our biggest movers of the month. July, historically speaking, it goes up 2.11%. And then in August, still up, but down a little bit. And then again, September and October historically are our bad months. So what do we see out of September? Well, let's see. Look, Friday, September 1st, and it just dropped into October, where it started off the month pretty well, but then again, just dropped up until November when it caught this huge rally. And again, what do we see here? November and December are the biggest movers. November, at least, is the biggest mover. December is one of the biggest movers, one of the biggest moving months for the S&P. And you can absolutely see that right here. So again, we're just taking a look at the last 10 years of data. How did it trend on this day, this week, this month, and comparing it year after year, and you'll notice a lot of similarities. That's all we're taking a look at here with seasonality. It's really, really cool to see. Why don't we take a look at the euro now? So if we go find Euro USD, it's right there. Euro USD looks very different than the S&P. You have a couple good months, a couple break-even months, and a couple months where you're down. So historically speaking, the Euro USD seems to be a very volatile asset, one that continuously goes up and down throughout the year. Why don't we take a look at the chart? And what do we see? It looks pretty volatile. We can see 2023 here up to the present day, and we have up, down, big down, and up. So why don't we, again, break it down by month? How about this? So September and October seem to be our biggest movers to the downside on the euro. What did we do in September and October? Well, here's September for you. September, clearly, it looks like July, August, and September were clearly the worst months of the year for the euro. September being one of them, and that completely lines up with what we see here. August is kind of a break-even month. Historically, August, over the last 10 years, we've seen some positive months and some negative months. That's why it's kind of at that break-even zone. And so, this year, August was a down year. Although in August, we did see this nice little spike too, but then gave back those gains. And then July. Historically speaking, July is a good month for the euro, but that was not the case this year. We hit the yearly highs in July, actually. So, well, when you think about it, July, historically speaking, is a good month, and July is where we saw our yearly highs. It started off very hot in July, and perhaps maybe it just got overbought, and it was due for a sell-off, and that's why we had that major sell-off that happened in July. What about the positive months? December is easily the most positive month of the year for the euro. So let's see what it did in December. In December, we started off, look, there's December 1st. That little red guy right there is December 1st. So it did not start off well, but if you held onto the euro throughout December, you would have caught this major move right here. And then December ends right here on this candle. So it did come down a little bit, but we started off here and we finished here. So overall, a positive month for the euro in December. So I hope you're kind of following along with how, again, just historically speaking, year after year, month after month, a lot of this stuff just kind of tends to trend the same. Not all the time, but that's why you can take a look at this, compare it to what you're seeing in the charts, apply it to your strategy, and see if, long or short entries based on months or even weeks are the right move for you. Speaking of weeks, we can take a look at our weekly seasonality here. And this is a really cool chart because, again, you're looking at all 52 weeks of the year. And what do we see? It looks to me like most weeks for the S&P are positive, which again makes total sense. In fact, why don't we go even to the weekly chart? Here's the weekly chart. I'll kind of zoom this out just a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. So 2023 weekly chart. And you know what? Just for fun, let's look at this. So what do we see here? S&P weekly, first week positive, second week positive, third week kind of break even, fourth positive, fifth week negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just count just for fun. Here is January 2nd. So first week positive, checks out. Second week positive, checks out. Third week negative, checks out. Fourth week positive, fifth week positive. We had fourth week positive, fifth week negative. So what? We hit like 4 out of 5, trended the same way historically over the last 10 years. What was our biggest? So this seems to be our biggest week right here, right? That's our biggest move. What's our biggest move here? 0.21, 0.22, 0.21 in week 45. You know what? I'm gonna save you the trouble. I'm gonna count. I'm going to count all of these and figure out what week this is so that we can take a look at it together. Okay, so I just counted very quickly and hopefully correctly, and I got this as week number 44 of the year. Week number 44 of the year, historically, again, one of the better weeks of the year before week 45, which again is like the best week of the year, historically speaking, over the last 10 years. Again, we kind of see the same thing. Huge stretch of positive weeks right here. That's how seasonality can be used in your trading, and especially seasonality using the edge finder. So if you enjoy what you see here, if you want to implement seasonality into your strategy, and if you want to get the edge finder for yourself, you can do so with the descriptions down below, and you can use promo code A1YT for a discount at checkout. Did you know we do a live trading show Monday through Friday with guests from all over the world? To get notified when we go live, click the bell button next to the subscribe button or check in at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have helpful, free content in the description below and on our website, a1trading.com. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you tomorrow.